Hello everybody, this is Lily from Berlin, Germany. I just printed out a letter I found on the internet recently, and I decided to read it out loud to you. It is Donald's original letter to the public. A man named Donald Marshall, God bless his soul, is revealing top secret information from the Illuminati, and there are several reasons why this speaks to me, but I'll just read the letter and tell you later on. Donald's original letter to the public. This is no hoax. This is no joke. My name is Donald Marshall. I have been cloned by a large secretive cult known as the Freemasons and the Vril Society and Scientologists, together called the Illuminati. They make replicated bodies of people to victimize in terrible ways. They clone children for men with underdeveloped penises to have sex with. Some very famous and politically powerful people all getting together for a disgusting time. Most of the G20 gather there to discuss worldly matters and watch gruesome things done to innocent people for sport. I have seen this firsthand and will tell all as it must be stopped. The political people started bringing movie stars and musicians there to hang around with them. They can control who remembers the cloning facility and who will remain oblivious even though not remembering still damages you. I know who is involved, the ringleaders, and everything they do. It is basically a torture and child molesting factory. I was one of those children, but when I was young, to keep the perverts off of me, I started singing songs. Original songs. Very good ones. They told me to keep making these songs and I wouldn't get hurt. And so I did. Then they started bringing me there every day for songs, as the celebrities wanted more. They called me the goose that laid the golden egg, the phenomenon, but I ran out of ideas. Then the torture began. They smashed my face to start, throwing me around, scarring me, a 5-year-old, never letting me remember in real life until I turned 30. The torture worsened until I was being stabbed and burned and repeatedly sodomized. At age 30, they allowed me to remember these clone memories, and now every time I enter REM, sleep, I am there. I don't have dreams, only clone memories. They made the movie The Island and Inception about this subject. They think they're very sly and untouchable. They have nothing to do but show off for each other in disgusting ways. They have no shame. It seems nothing embarrasses them. They sit there in the stands of an unused arena smaller than a hockey ring, but can still seat between 300 and 400 people with dirt in the center where the ice would be. They have frightened clones of children go into the middle to be victimized for a bizarre, disgusting spectacle, sometimes having animals like dogs have sex with them, while a man holds the leash so it won't bite them on the back of the neck, which I've seen happen before. They all try to outdo each other in their levels of depravity. To be evil is cool to them. Now to tell you about the ringleaders, as unbelievable as it may be to you, but you must believe me, this is a world emergency. The royal family of England, yes, Queen Elizabeth, Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, and Prince Charles are the worst of them. Unbelievable, depraved perverts, all showing off for the celebrities that go there. Elizabeth has the children there, call her Lilibet, and does ungodly things to them. Some she fakes being nice to, some she is terrible to, cutting them with swords while they scream. The decent people that are there against their will are afraid to say anything against them. Most have their children there as a kind of hostage, to be torn apart if they even think of informing anyone. But as they have been torturing me terribly anyway, I will tell all. Vladimir Putin loves to put the fear of torture and death into people, but is essentially a cowardly pervert himself. Most of the famous people are ashamed to speak or be seen by me there very much, as they are ashamed of the perverse and disgusting gatherings. I am a decent person and will not participate in these acts, so they use me as an example and torture me for being a good person. They've drugged me and had me say and do disgusting things in a blurred state, just in case any of this comes to light, so I can be hated as well by any that prove this. CSIS, Canadian intelligence, are all involved, including a lot of commissionaries and Prime Minister Stephen Harper himself. They do what Elizabeth says, seem to follow her even her every whim, without question. It doesn't matter who you are. If you have a cute child or a child with a money-making ability, like song-making, they will clone your child and molest them. It's a pedophile's paradise and must be stopped. Elizabeth secretly owns a few music companies, Universal and others, with bands under contract. She forces me, while under the knife, to compose music for them. If I can't, she will stab my clone, burn me, have her pervert thugs smash my body there. It's causing me some kind of heart damage and severe debilitating headaches. One good person there, Bernie Mac, comedian and actor, tried to stand up for me, tried to speak up for me, saying it's not right to do to a human being. Tried to have others join him in speaking out against the clone torture zone while there. Elizabeth and Philip had him tortured so badly there as an example of their power, he had an aneurysm the next day and died. No one will speak up. They're all afraid of suffering the same fate. All it will take is a few lie detector tests. I will volunteer for them. They cover up for themselves so carefully that it will be the only way. I know of many non-famous people that could be given a lie detector test to prove this. When it comes to the sexual exploitation of a child, lie detectors are admissible in Canadian courts. I need decent people with integrity, to speak to about this filthy business, to tell who is involved. There is much more to tell. I am a wealth of information about this topic. Also, Elizabeth had Princess Diana Spencer killed by having someone shine the brightest light known to mankind through the window side onto the car. They swerved away from it and hit the divider. It was no paparazzi. Diana survived, though, and while either on the way to or in the hospital was injected with a high concentration of salt, which is near undetectable, and died. She did this because Diana was going to marry an Arab. Diana hated them, knew about the cloning stuff, and wanted nothing to do with it, but was afraid of being killed, so said nothing. I know this and many more things that I will be more than happy to tell. I beg you, reading this, to help me. I swear this to be true with my right hand to God. They stupidly put my face on a Megadeth album, The World Needs a Hero, when I was 23, thinking nothing would ever be proven. Google image it. I still look the same. It shows what I end up looking like after a clone gathering. Most of the members of my family are there, some willing, some not. Some remember in real life, some don't. None will do anything for free of torture and death. My family has one by one been turned against me. They told them things like I secretly hit or molested their children, poisoned their pets when they died of sickness, things like that to make them hate me and not want to help me. Even if they side with me there and say they don't believe it's true, Elizabeth then says, Are you calling me a liar? In her disgusting croaking voice, made as low and evil sounding as she can make it, complete with psychotic, malevolent glare, and they say, No, of course it's true, stuttering afraid. My mother, Catherine McMahon, sold me into this sex and torture slavery when she remarried a man named Gordon Cahoon. His whole family is in this scummy secret society. His brothers Tom and Tony Cahoon, his sisters Darlene and Bernadette Cahoon, they fear the new and improved lie detector test, and that is all it would take to prove this true. Halfway through making this document, they brought me there and introduced me to a man named Troy Landry. He is an alligator trapper from Louisiana on the TV program Swamp People. He said if I sent this letter out, he would take a power drill to my shin bone there and suck the marrow from my bones, kind of like a spinal tap, one of the worst things you can do to a clone besides burning. I said the letter will be going out, I have to escape this place, and so he did just that. It was excruciatingly painful. Everyone just watched slack-jawed in the crowd. Troy Landry is an insatiable child molester and an extra retarded clone. In Louisiana, when he sees a young boy he asks his name, tells him he's an alligator hunter, shakes hands, and then asks his pedophile friends at the local cloning station to find the boy's blood records to clone him. Months later, there are multiple identical boys grown for Troy Landry to victimize before the crowd of onlookers. They all do this. It's just a way of life for them. They consider themselves the privileged people in the World Power Organization. Nearly everyone on that Swamp People show go to the cloning stations. Nearly everyone on that Swamp People show go to the cloning stations. After doing this shin bone spinal tap, he asked me again, will I send this letter out? And I said yes. He said he'll do the same to my pelvic bone every day. It's worse. I said I have no choice, and so he did, and it's worse. You forget your own name. Where you are, all you know is pain, and you beg God or anything to save you from it. Another deploring thing they did in real life, the Canadian government was trying to lower the amount of prostitutes on the streets. Also, Elizabeth hates prostitutes. So they had a man named Robert Picton start killing them and feeding them to pigs on his pig farm. They had a camera set up in the upper corner of a room in his house and recorded him hitting them in the head with a hammer, a ball peen hammer. They took the recordings and all watched them at the cloning station. Elizabeth loves watching it, says she has a macabre fascination with death. Prime Minister Stephen Harper knows all about it, has seen the recordings, and cheers as the rest of them do. If Mr. Picton ever says anything about them or the recordings, they will make him have a heart attack or aneurysm. You may ask, why won't they just kill me before I send this document everywhere? It's because I've done so much since age 5. No one wants to be responsible for my death. They've said I'm the New Age Jesus, which I'm not. Then they've said I'm the Antichrist. Also the Jewish people there are more of them there than anyone else, called me the Mashiach. I didn't know what that was, so I looked it up on the internet. It means Jewish Messiah, also which I am not. Now every day rich people go there to meet me and smash me or stab me for some gruesome fetish, it seems, while the rest watch in the stands. It's the worst nightmare situation I have ever heard of, and it's happening to me. They get others too, but they're just used as sex slaves and won't talk about it. I get tortured anyway and have nothing to lose by telling everyone about it. Not only am I tortured into making songs for nearly everyone on Much Music, they want me to give them video ideas and movie ideas, video game ideas. They want me to think up all kinds of stuff for them. Jewish people think I'm something religious and won't leave me alone. They torture animals too. The more the animal screams, the more their God Yahweh supposedly likes it, which I find ridiculous. I've written the human rights board. They didn't respond. I went to the police. They threw me into a mental hospital for 23 days for an evaluation. I was released with a clear bill of mental health. They continue to torture me, talk to me about absurd subjects. They've run out of things to talk about, even talked about the difference between Pop-Tarts and toaster strudel, and which is better and why. There is nothing to do there besides sex and fighting and torturing other victims. I must add, they clone people from all walks of life there and chain them down to stainless steel corpse tables and drug them so they can't move. Send people into the room dressed up as aliens, Hollywood-quality makeup, and make them think they're having an alien abduction. They even dye chicken skin gray and stretch it over a mask for realism, perform medical experiments on them, cutting them up, perverts, anal probing them, and raping their limp bodies. These victims wake up and think they've been abducted by aliens, but don't know where to turn, and are embarrassed. The victims even sometimes try to videotape themselves while they sleep to prove they've been taken to no avail. But to no avail. They're not taken. They've been cloned by the most disgusting perverts in the world. The scum even videotape these abductions to watch later as sick, demented porn. This happens more often than you can imagine. They just keep doing it to random people over and over and over. They've offered me clone slaves to keep me quiet. Any of the prettiest women I've ever seen. My girl from the high school, even children. Any girl from the high school, even children. I do the right thing and spit in their faces, jam my fingers into their eyes, but they have some way of turning off their pain receptors there. Not much will hurt them, other than getting dirt or vomit in a wound or bleeding out too much. It only costs them time and money to grow new bodies. I started smearing excrement in their faces. I've never handled feces in my real life before, but I do this there, and even that doesn't deter them. I made a song for One Republic referring to it called All the Right Moves. The lyrics say, all the right friends in all the right places, all the right moves in all the right faces. I've made so many songs, it's ridiculous. Rock, pop, rap, country, there are so many people involved in it, it's staggering. The organization is vast. The only thing they fear is nuclear war, the new and improved lie detector tests, and this letter. For those of you thinking Queen Elizabeth looks like a kindly little old lady, and this can't be true, you couldn't be more wrong. She is the worst human being I have ever seen or heard of. It is so sad to see these women and children brought there, sitting in the center, dirt, naked, afraid, crying, raped and beaten for sport of the rich and famous. I, of course, can't bring myself to be a part of it. Fief Dobson, singer, and Kurt Russell, actor, told me specifically to include in my letter that they don't like the place and didn't torture me. Then said not to mention them, but I just have. Mila Kunis, actress from that 70s show, recently stabbed me a bunch of times while I was rendered immobile for saying she's a slimy scumbag for hanging with these people and saying she has enormous eyeballs and looks like a lemur. Then begged me not to mention her. Then said she doesn't want to go to the clone zone anyway, and she left, her body going limp and looking dead. She was gone. These people are allowed to leave, but not me. I'm an imprisoned slave in the worst nightmare situation. I told Nicole Leone, Madonna, that I was going to tell everyone what she used to do to me for songs throughout my life. She told me very specifically to say in my letter here, she is not afraid. No one will believe me, and nothing will come of this. I beg you to help me prove her wrong. I am a Christian, God-fearing man. They tell me there is no God, only science and technology. They are responsible for the death of young beauty pageant girl Jean Bennett Ramsey. Her parents are in this. Cassie Anthony's daughter, Cassie Anthony Anthony, and her parents are in this. Many others recently, a man had his wife killed. It's on the news now. The Asian woman, her rich husband had her killed, said she was responsible for his son's death. Elizabeth says rich people in this organization don't go to jail. They are covered for. Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, members. George had them light me on fire for the end of his movie Revenge of the Sith. Said he wanted Hayden Christensen to scream realistically. Hayden watched me, listen to me, scream and groan in pain, and copied the sounds exactly. He knows all about it, as does Natalie Portman and a quarter of the cast. Many directors have used me like that, in a role-playing situation. Caused me some kind of excruciating pain just to see what kind of squeak or screech I will make, as if I were less than a dog. Then, when I'm in a bloody mess on the floor, they crawl on me, on my broken body, and sodomize me, saying something like they love me and can't control themselves because I made all their favorite songs and am so special. Broken ribs, bending, and internal bleeding, me crying or screaming if I am able, but they just keep on going, and they videotape this so they can view it again like evil pornography. Children they bring there need a familiar face to talk to, or all they do is scream and cry. That is why Joy Gazer comes in. She is married to my half-brother from my father's first marriage. Joy Gazer is a girl guide leader, and when they clone in girl guides, she speaks to them, keeps them calm, and pretty much pimps them for free, knowing the children will have their memories repressed and will not talk about it in real life. All the Gazers are in this stuff. Many people that could also be polygraph tested, independent polygraph testers, because the police testers in my city of Halifax, Nova Scotia, are compromised. They cover up for child molesters. As I said, commissionaries and CSIS are heavily involved. All it will take is a few lie detector tests to prove these things. I will take them and demand my mother and stepfather submit to them as well. It would be as easy as that. They've told me they won't even attempt to lie on a polygraph. Please don't consider this the ramblings of a crazy person. It is absolute truth. My life and the lives and freedom of many people are depending on this document. They say the world finding out about cloning will set the stage for the end of the world in 2012. They're big into Nostradamus and prophecy, saying I'm the Antichrist because he is supposed to have a powerful weapon of air, internet. And this letter I send everywhere over the internet is like a weapon over the airwaves and will cause Armageddon. But something must be done. You can't understand unless you've been there. Just how terrible this is. The level of depravity and subhuman cruelty is beyond anything that has ever been heard of, and there is much more to tell. Ignore this and you condemn me to a horrible eventual death, and will encourage them that they are all-powerful. This is not an exaggeration. I don't need to exaggerate. There is still much more to tell. Even President Obama is involved with these people. He and his wife go to these gatherings. They thought up a sick joke there. They and their administrators set up a low-level flight of Air Force One over New York City sometime after the 9/11 World Trade Center bombings, simply to terrify people. Just because they could. Told people afterwards it was a photo opportunity for their plane, but no pictures were taken. They had the emergency calls of frightened people brought to the clone place, listened to them and laughed hysterically. People yelling out, Al-Qaeda has more planes calling emergency lines, lots of calls from terrified people. Then looked at me and said, Donnie, we are all powerful. If we can do this and nothing comes of it, how are you going to be able to get us? You are our slave, and the people here won't speak up for you for fear of torture and death. Now make us a new song, or we'll gut you like a fish and leave you to writhe in agony. This is so important. It's all God's honest truth. I swear to you. Please help me for pity's sake. I realize what this sounds like, but I can only say what I know. It's supposed to sound absurd. It's their best defense. They've chained me to a cross and cut me up, burned me and stuff like a crucifixion with extra torture, while they all watch blank faces, some crying, some just staring at their feet, some actually masturbate in their seats while this is going on and I'm screaming. They don't seem to get tired of it. It's like some weird kind of religious ceremony. My email address is donnie865@hotmail.com. Message me, please, and I will tell you where I am and will tell everything in person on camera. We'll take lie detector tests myself, and I have proof this is real. I will be tortured there badly for sending you this. I might die for blanketing the world with this message. This is not a conspiracy theory. It's simply what is happening. What you are looking at right now is the most important document that has ever been put on the internet. Do nothing and allow them to continue to clone your children and sisters and wives and sons, causing them to have learning disabilities, unexplained depression, and suicidal thoughts, all kinds of side effects. The importance of this is so heavy, people. It's the most terrible thing in the world, and this is your only chance to do something about it. Don't be afraid. Help me, help myself, and others. This is part 1. I will make part 2, including the massive amount of names of people that go there. They're going to make an example of me there to show what happens to people that talk about cloning and have been. Do not waste this knowledge. I am going through a man-made living hell for this. It's my only hope and the only hope of many people imprisoned there. I sincerely beg you, Donald Marshall. Read more, donaldmarshallprobarts.com. So, that was it. That was part 1 of his letter. I recently found the other document, part 2, which is a big file full of pictures of celebrities and names and politicians, etc. And I'll read that another time. I just wanted to say thank you to Donald. I find it very courageous, and I know that this is true. Why? Number 1, because I prayed over it, and because God has been revealing these kind of things for a while now. Number 2, because I believe the way he writes, that he's telling the truth. Number 3, because I myself was in a movie called Cloud Atlas. I used to do some acting, and I was a hero clone. A hero clone. They had a bunch of Asian girls from my city here. They casted them to be some kind of special extra next to the main cast that was brought in from Asia, Korea and China, I think, but definitely Korea. And we were waitresses in a restaurant called Papa Song, and these waitresses were cloned. They were all clones of each other, but there were several types. So like I would have had 10,000 of clones, and the other girl would have had 10,000 of clones, and some of them are still friends with me. So in that movie, it was a dystopia, like a future dystopia described, where the people working at that restaurant were slaves, also sex slaves. Yeah, they were sexually assaulted by the owner of the restaurant. And the most gruesome part is that in the movie they eat each other. So the food of the waitresses is other waitresses when they are like no more usable, when their clone bodies are dispensable. So kind of sick. And it's interesting because that movie was made by the makers of The Matrix. Andy and Larry Wachowski originally. And while we were doing The Matrix, Larry turned into Lana. So it was a man becoming a woman, which is part of the Antichrist transgender agenda under Obama. And now his brother's also a woman. So that's just one interesting part of it, because when I was 10 years old and I was in the USA, I saw The Matrix alone in the living room. I saw The Matrix, and I remember back then I was thinking, so this is The Matrix. But I was wondering, like, so, okay, but what is reality then? Or what is the truth? And of course it couldn't be exactly like in the movie, but I just knew that one day I'm supposed to step out of the Matrix. And so it was very interesting that when I was 22, I started a movie from the makers of the Matrix. I even saw them in person. Yeah, they talked to me. And a few years later, God reveals himself to me and shows me all the things that are really going on, and suddenly everything makes sense. All the disgusting, evil lyrics and all the song Sweet Dreams was written by Donald Marshall. And I always, when I was small, I was wondering, sweet dreams are made of this. Who am I to disagree? Some of them want to abuse you. Some of them want to be abused. Some of them want to use you. Some of them want to be used by you. Like, I was thinking, well, who writes a song like that? What's behind that? So all these weird things that never made sense, suddenly they all come together. I mean,